We're gonna try and paint one of the most iconic horror films of all time for the Sin series, but this is a challenge. We'll be using just this one bottle of ink. Is this even possible? Yes, there's just this one bottle of ink, but I have a secret. I make dilutions. This is the biggest art hack and something you've got to do if you use ink. There's a light, there's a dark, and then there's the original. But where is the middle? Well, I've got this old little bottle here, and I think we need to make another dilution if this is gonna work. All you need is water and ink. That's literally it. And then you can make your own dilutions. But we can't just eyeball this. We need a little sketchbook so that we can make the perfect shade. So let's see what we've got. First up is the light dilution. I actually made this bottle as an experiment whilst I was partway through Inktober a few years ago. It felt like I was wasting a lot of ink because I'd been mixing all of these different colors and then it kind of dried and went lumpy. So that's how I made the dilutions out of this bottle that I cannot open. Literally, I've had them for years and they haven't gone lumpy at all. So this is the perfect idea if you're finding that you're not working super fast with ink. So that was a whole faff. Like, look at my hands. The biggest problem with these ink bottles. Well, anyway, we've got it open, popping a few drops in, adding a little bit of water before deciding to just throw it all in. And let's see what we got. Already, this is looking like a pretty good middle shade. But you know what? I think the dark isn't dark enough. The middle's looking good, but we need to make that dark just a little bit darker. This way we're going to have 3 lovely grey tones plus the bottle, which is solid black. And that's only going to be used for line work. Let's update those bottles and then we're pretty much good to go. This is my biggest secret when it comes to India ink. But when you're using pure black, these dilutions make it easy. I've got a plate, spoiler alert, we don't actually use it, and a dip pen. I think we're good to go. Got the Sin series sketchbook out, and this is the sketch. Can you guess the movie? Yes, it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I almost forgot that we need tape. Of course we need tape. Does this match the theme? The Halloween tape? Kind of. I think this is the closest that we're gonna get. Starting off with a very loose first layer. The thing about India ink is you cannot go lighter. You need to start light, you need to work quickly, and then gradually get darker. And whilst you've seen the sketch, this is the actual scene. So our painting is gonna look a little bit different. Ours is gonna be monochrome, and honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull this off. We're keeping it simple, we're keeping it light, and this is what the first layer is looking like. But you know what will make it easier? If I make the reference photo black and white, like look at that, it's already a lot easier to tell which parts are darker. This is one of my biggest struggles when it comes to using India ink in place of color. It gets really difficult to tell whether something is lighter or darker than something else when it's a completely different color. And taking it back to basics using only one color, well, I suppose it's black, but creating something monochrome is a fantastic way to learn. Really makes you think. Rather than just splashing color on the paper, you have to really figure out which parts are lighter and darker than each other, which areas need more contrast. You can learn a lot from just using one color like this. And I'm just gonna say it now, I have not used India ink since Peachtober 2024, where I created a cute little deer and their mother. I think it was prompt number 5, maybe it was fawn. That was the last time that I used India ink. And before that, it probably was literally like the Peachtober before that, and then Inktober. Really, I only pull out these bottles when it comes to art challenges. And funnily enough, after painting this movie scene, I actually painted a mermaid prompt with this ink straight after. The prompt is Tsunami, it's in the final week, and that was a lot of fun too. When it comes to art challenges, switching up mediums is a really good way to keep momentum going. We're gradually getting darker, but I think we need to go back to the light now because the background is pretty light and I want to try and make some blooms. This is something that India ink is fantastic stick for. If you like blooms, you have got to try ink. Unfortunately, it's very unpredictable. As you can see, we're just making a whole mess. And I can fully understand why people don't like blooms, because they do look messy. I've created pieces in the past that I absolutely love. I love how messy it looks. And it's been on random mixed media paper that isn't even designed for watercolor, so it looks super messy. And I personally really like it, but it's all subjective. Blooms are very controversial. You either love them or you hate them. Personally, I think they're really pretty. I love how watercolor and ink can look super unpredictable, and that's the look that I like to go for. The kind of art that can't be recreated easily. When you add blooms, you really cannot recreate it. You'd have to have a lot of attempts. And unfortunately, I'm making a huge mess, getting absolutely covered, whilst trying to tackle this hair. This hair is really difficult because technically it's dark, but you know what? It needs dimension. It is super curly, so we've got to leave some of those highlights in. Back in the day, I would have just colored the entire hair in one color and then tried to darken from there, and that never looked good. So we're leaving in those gaps for highlights and gradually making all of those shadows a little bit darker. Unfortunately, I did realize that there was a lot of mid-tones. The outfit kind of blends in with the background. That weird thing is the furniture that's covered in the red sheet. So the only thing that is really light is the background, the walls, the floor, and the only thing that's really dark is their hair. So as you'll see, I had to change things up a little bit just to get a little bit more contrast. In the film, there is contrast because there's so many different colors, especially for this scene. Less so when it's all black and white. I want to say a quick thank you to my sketchbook buddies on Patreon. You guys are the best. So anyway, we have not talked about this movie. This movie was requested by Christine Marvel, so thank you so much. It meant I actually got to watch this for the very first time. Can you believe I'd never seen it? I knew it was iconic. It just wasn't something that I ever got around to watching. I like musicals, but I am very specific with the musicals that I like and kind of obsess over. I actually haven't seen that many. I only watched Chicago for the first time recently. Wasn't a huge fan of that. It was a little bit odd, to be honest. Absolutely love Mamma Mia, of course. I watched the Mean Girls musical recently, and I got to say I really enjoyed that. And funnily enough, the next movie that we're gonna paint is actually a musical as well. That was not planned. It was also requested by one of you, so I guess we all just love musicals. Honestly though, there are so many more that I need to watch. But yeah, watching this one for the first time was an experience. I think it's one of those musicals that, no, it's very, very weird the first time you watch it, where you don't know any of the songs, you don't know what's gonna happen. I didn't really know any of the plot, but I think if you watch it again, the weirdness kind of disappears and you can really appreciate it for what it is. I do feel that a lot for musicals, to be honest. They're a little bit odd to watch for the first time when you don't know the songs and you don't know what's gonna happen, and then the love kind of comes later. That's what I think anyway. But now for the scary part. The dip pen is out and we are using the India ink straight. This is the darkest dark. So if I mess up any of these lines, there's nothing we can do to fix it. The only thing we'd be able to do would be like adding a white gel pen or white gouache and somehow trying to do something there. If you use a black India ink like this straight from the bottle, it's like a fine liner, like it is pure black. So if you make any mistakes, there's nothing you can do to fix it. But I think we can see that the contrast is really coming together now. We desperately needed those dark tones. And I've got to say, creating a monochromatic piece like this, using just India ink, which is very forgiving because you can go really dark. It's not like you're trying to make a piece using only like yellow, which doesn't have any contrast in it at all really. Because you're using black and white and then everything in between, you can make so much contrast, so much more than you would even consider if you're using color. So I 100% recommend trying this just for practice, really. I feel like I learned a lot, and I think there's so much more contrast here than there would have been if I just created it following the reference. If I used different colors, I would have focused more on trying to get the colors correct than trying to get the tone correct. Changing it up a little from an artistic perspective, where some of the tones are just a little bit too similar. I would not have noticed that if I was using like red next to purple. I wouldn't have a clue that they were different tones because it's so much harder to see. So yes, it is a challenge, but also to create this painting, we have only used those bottles, those little bottles of dilutions, the light, medium, dark, and the India ink straight. I got the plate out. I thought I'd be mixing, but it really wasn't necessary. The bottles provided me with everything I needed because the way the India ink works, if you're going to use the light dilution and layer it 100 times, drying in between if you really had that patience, you would probably end up with something close to the dark dilution. Because it's transparent, that means that if the background is completely filled in with the light color, if we then layer the light on top, automatically you've created a different shade. It's not opaque. You could layer the light dilution on itself like 5 times and you would get 5 completely different shades. And that's why this method works so well. Absolutely love it. It's one of my biggest hacks. I've never seen anyone else really talk about it, but this is how I personally use it. Found it out for Inktober. I've used it every time since, for Matcha Robots, for Peachtober, every single time I get the inks out, because this is the perfect way to use India ink. And it's not talked about anywhere near enough. The face, I think I made it a little bit too cute. I have since actually drawn Tim Curry, funnily enough. I guess it was like twice in 1 month, which I didn't see coming. We did it for the 100 Heads challenge where he was also requested, and that one had a lot more likeness. For this painting, I think I stylized it just a little bit too much. I made his face a little bit rounder, a little bit more cute to match my art style, and unfortunately I think that's kind of where the likeness disappeared. I didn't plan to, but he does have quite a long face. So yeah, he's not really super recognizable, but we're gonna go back into that medium bottle because some of these grays are blending in. As I said, the entire outfit is very similar in tone, so we're gonna have to change this up. We're gonna have to darken certain areas even more than they actually were, just to make this painting stand out, just to bring that contrast back. We are painting a movie scene, we are using a reference, but we are also creating an art piece, and it's completely okay to change things up. If you've got an idea and you think it's gonna work, go for it. Not everything has to be realism. Not everything has to be completely accurate. Something that looks amazing in real life might not translate when it comes to the art. All of your favorite colors in real life might look trash when you actually put them together on paper for a painting. Just because it works in real life doesn't mean it will look good on paper. So this is your reminder to experiment. Give yourself the freedom to create and to change things up. Trust your gut, trust your instincts, and if it doesn't work, firstly, you can always do it again if you want to. Secondly, if you're scared of messing up, take a scan or a photo first. And thirdly, what is the worst that can happen? You might create something you absolutely love, like this weird little piece. And just like that, I think we might be done. Heating up that tape, as always. When it comes to washi tape, I have trust issues, and rightly so. They are a nightmare. Honestly, do not trust washi tape. Always do this. Unfortunately, there was a little accident. Some of Romeo and Juliet accidentally reactivated, and I'm gonna have to patch that up a little bit. Still, I saved all of the tape for that mess, and the plate is clean. It worked perfectly. This is the creation. It's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Let me know if there's any other horror movies you'd like to see me paint. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in a few days' time. Bye bye.